People are crying here and then. Is that how it's supposed to be?
The question on the minds of Nigerians after President Tinubu announced the removal of fuel subsidy. With over 130 million Nigerians living in multidimensional poverty, the resultant soaring cost of living has left many struggling to make ends meet. Sadly, the salaries of most civil servants have not been increased except for few states. Some others are yet to implement the minimum wage. Several car owners have had to cut down on the liters of petrol they buy, while others have resorted to picking up passengers on their way to work to make up the cost of buying fuel. This commuter says he has to pay more to get to work every day.
Our job actually requires like lots of movements. Even this morning we were talking about location, moving from one location to other. Today I had to pay almost 700 naira from Kubwa to Barnex, and that's very, very preposterous.
For you to pay 700 naira from Duse or Kubwa, as is to here, you know what it takes. How much is the salary of people?
I reach here to sell my food. I discovered that all the people that have been coming here to eat food, none of them are here to eat food because of running to buy fuel. And at the end, the fuel have increased the price from where the initial price to the price that they cannot afford now, even to eat. They are finding it difficult.
Though the removal of fuel subsidy has been hailed by some experts as a move in the right direction for Nigeria's economy, the organized labor and civil rights groups have continued to demand that the government provides palliatives and welfare programs to cushion the effect of the policy. This is in addition to prioritizing the rehabilitation of the nation's refineries.
Is government ready to pay ×3 of the current minimum wage? That is one. Is government ready to increase money to the education sector ×3? Is government ready to expand infrastructure the way it is right now ×3? Because if you have tripled the cost of this commodity, PMS, and you are getting these resources, what is your pact? What are you telling Nigerians?
I believe Nigerians engineers can fix it. If Nigerians take this matter serious, call them to go to that refinery, they will fix it. We have machines in Nigeria that can assist them to get local listing and fix that place, instead of all depending on foreigners. Every time, billions of naira spent, billions for how many years now on one refinery. Look at what it's doing to us today.
In the next few years, Nigeria stops fuel importation. And that is why we're here, to see the extent of work done. And we're satisfied with what we have seen here. From what we have seen here, Port Harcourt will come on board by the end of the year. Wari will start by the first quarter of next year. And then Kaduna will come on stream towards the end of next year. If we add that together with Dangote refinery, we'll be able to, stop fuel importation that is taking, substantial part of our forex.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited says Nigeria has witnessed a 30% decline in fuel consumption following the removal of petrol subsidy by President Bola Tinubu.
We used to do 66.7 million liters as at 29th of May. And as we speak today, we only do about 46 million liters of consumption in the country. Evacuation. By the way, this figure includes cross-border leakages, and I must admit this, but this is the reality that we are dealing with. Even at that, we have seen 30% decline in the total volume of PMS that is consumed in this country. This also means reduction of 30% of foreign exchange requirements.
The Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, had reacted after the President's pronouncement that subsidy payment was no longer sustainable as it hinders the company from funding its core businesses.
As at the time Mr. President took over, May 29 to be precise, we are actually at the point of default, and NNPC was facing imminent illiquidity. This is because we keep carrying the subsidy burden. The Federation that means all the subnationals and the federal government are unable to pay their bills for the subsidy. That means NMPC was carrying the subsidy burden for the whole federation until it became very obvious by the time Mr. President took over that it is no longer possible to proceed.
Experts and stakeholders have consistently emphasized the need for alternative sources of energy aside fuel. For instance, focus has now been on the use of compressed natural gas to power cars.
It has very minor amount of, very little amount of carbon, so it does not burn more carbon like petrol. So it's prolonged the lifespan of your engine oil. So if you are the type that services your engine every 1 month, you might have to be servicing maybe 2 months or 3 months because you are using your C engine, and it has no negative effect on your engine. So it's as good as clean energy.
But how many Nigerians can afford to convert their cars to CNG, with the cost put at over 400,000 naira? The fact is, the removal of subsidy had increased the economic difficulties Nigerians had been battling for years, and there was no immediate measure put in place before or after the president's announcement. What will be the fate of millions of Nigerians who already spend triple the usual amount for food, transportation, and other basic necessities? Will the federal government heed demands for increased wages? As the present administration clocks 100 days in office, the onus lies with the Tinubu administration to provide measures that would lift the burden off the shoulders of vulnerable Nigerians. Sadly, the administration does not appear to have figured out yet how to do this. Georgina Ndukwezaika, Arise News.
Arise analyst Dr. Sam Amadi joins us now. Dr. Amadi, thank you for coming to Newsnight.
Thank you.
Yes, we have, as you've seen, we're having a look at the first 100 days of the Tinubu administration. Today, it's the economy. So let's start with a macroeconomic outlook of the country, because the larger picture determines then what trickles down. How competitive are our firms when it comes to the effect or the impact of the fuel subsidy removal? How competitive are they now?
Well, I think we need baseline data to say, okay, how competitive they were before Tinubu's coming and policy announcements and how they are today. But essentially, qualitatively, analytically, you can argue that if the effects of removal of fuel subsidy is to spike the cost of energy, then you're going to have spike in cost of production, because many of the companies, commercial outlets that will use energy, both fuel is going up, petrol, and then electricity is going up. Okay, so the impact will be to increase cost of doing business. So essentially, you're going to be competitive. There's nothing that's happened in the economy to make products cheaper. Nothing has happened in the economy to make them be produced at cheaper costs.
Right.
The only way to become competitive is either through R&D, research and development. You have you now produce with much more cheaper in cost and much more efficient inputs. Right. Or you have low wage. Okay, you take advantage of low wage, and therefore your products are cheaper relative to the competitors. So we're not going to be globally competitive if our firms are going to be stuck with high cost of energy, in addition to other inefficiencies. And the things that we produce, we don't have much wage difference between maybe Ghana, Cameroon, or India, or China, places where maybe some of our products, apart from petrol, are competing against. So I think we're going to be, this will impact, and that's why you are seeing with inflation of July around 24.08% annual inflation, you now see that everything's going up. And we're not seeing compensatory, that will now say, okay, fine, maybe Nigerian firms are doing better in terms of reducing costs because of other inputs, government subsidy. The interventions that are going to come to champions, selected champions, enterprises that are going to be selected have not yet drawn down. So none of the policy interventions, and of course, like the Arise News reporter said, government has not figured out, there's basically no stimulus or any palliative that addresses either from the household part of it in terms of income and what people can spend and how
disposable income, you mean?
Or even from small enterprises. So nothing big has happened so far.
All right, beyond talking about, of course, we're looking back at the first 100 days, but I'm more interested in, designing the next 100 days in a way that people can actually sigh, breathe a sigh of relief. It looks like some good is coming out of the fuel subsidy removal. I mean, we've heard from KRE that 30% of fuel consumption has declined to about 45 million. And we're also hearing that in the next few years, the refineries will be up and running and Nigeria will no longer be importing fuel. It sounds like deja vu, really. But going forward, what are some of the steps you expect President Tinubu to make based on the foundational steps he's taken so far? What would be the next level?
I think the first thing is get more coherent in articulating the economic reform program. So far, there's a lot of confusion. And yes, boldness, you can see, or recklessness, depending on how you look at it, okay? But we're not seeing coherence. So, for example, we're hearing his Minister for Humanitarian, Social Humanitarian Services talk about taking 135
out of poverty.
You can't, it's just illogical to do that while emphasizing aggressive market-based policies. So look at it this way. There are two ways people think it can reduce poverty. One is through high growth, but that high growth has to be delivered in a way that there is more inclusion. It doesn't just trickle down. It comes from bottom up, rural economy, sectors where people are capturing gains, and design in a way that people capture more gain. So you just can't deal with the poverty crisis without a strong, robust social sector, not just a ministry, policy. So for example, yes, we made gains with reducing consumption of petrol. Some of the big people who are probably driving multiple cars can still afford it, but the people who get hit hard are the poor people who can't afford it. So it might actually increase inequality because of asymmetrical impact on different population group. So the rich cushion themselves, more access to revenue, they can pass it to their clients, lawyers. I was with a lawyer today, senior advocate, who said, look, he spends so much carrying his entourage or the vehicles, but he can pass it off to clients, to governors who is doing election cases for. But who will civil servants, rural women, farmers who are stuck, pass it to? So you have to think around, how do you then cushion that and help them? So coherence, so you can't be talking about reducing poverty.
Coherence in what area?
Coherence in the policy design.
Like the post-palliative moves or what? Exactly?
For example, the policy design to remove subsidy may be a good idea, but you have to deliver, designed, executed in a manner that captures and minimizes this damaging impact on other social goals. So for example, if they have phased out 50%, let's say, of that, and then by December, you are ramping up refinery capacity locally, dropping the prices, moving to CNG more, so it becomes like a real alternative. Then you keep on phasing it. And the impact on livelihood and even the inflationary pressure will be less. So the point I'm making is that in the next 100 days, the government should have coherence in terms of its policy. If you look at the Tinubu manifesto before it got to government, it's more of a what we call social market. The idea of using the state intervening in markets to create impact that favor sustainable human development. It looks like it has gone out of jack and there's excessive speeding on the neoliberal pro-market, get price right approach, which itself has dangerous implications for a third world country that has most of its people in poverty and doesn't even have a good market. See, people talk about market forces. There's actually no market that's efficient in that sense. Even in developed economies, they realize that market failure is rampant. That's why the Minister of Finance says, look, speculators. So you can't just say, demand and supply in Forex, knowing that there are those who are going to artificially stimulate excess demand for
Dr. Amadi, Dr. Amadi, as we try to wrap this up, I also want us to be a little more pragmatic about it. Would you say that the fuel subsidy removal has also caused some form of wealth redistribution as a new set of pool emerged? I'm trying to say the domino effect of this
the World Bank
policy.
Even came up and said, look, even as Tinubu was taking over power, that about 7 to 11 million people are going to get into more poverty because of the expected impact of energy cost, fuel, electricity. The fuel subsidy removal procedure is going to create more poverty. That's clear. We're going to wait at MBS report, maybe towards October, December, and see 3 weeks, a quarter of this government and the policy. It could actually heighten, and it will, inequality, because most of the people who are going to gain are the importers of petrol. Government is gaining by looking at their deficit going down, so they're not spending more forex. Yeah. But the point is, if those gains are not translated in a coherent, managed form, for example, if states do what Anambra is trying to do, okay, you say you're going to address issues, disaggregate impact, local people, free access to healthcare, cash transfer, tax waivers, buying boats for those who are coastal. So those kind of disaggregated, real concrete interventions using the if you like, the windfall that states are going to get.
The 5 billion to states, yes, how much impact do you think that will make?
The way they have designed so far will not make impact, because one has no coherence in terms of tracking. It's loose. State governors, some use them for politics, so there's no control, except state governors themselves, like Anambra is trying to do. So my point is this, that you're going to see increased poverty, obvious, is coming up, we see the data. You're going to see more inequality arising from this. And it might still constrain growth, capacity growth, industrial capacity growth, because if these SMEs don't have a way you cushion directly the impact of the energy cost to them.
Can you give us one positive?
The positive.
Like you read my mind.
The positive is
one positive.
The positive is
like you read my
fiscal deficit. Government has been able to close that gap. They are sharing more money at FEC, but in economics, and you look at the social impact. So if I say, oh, we now have less deficit, but what's the downside in the middle to long term of an economy where cost of energy is high? It's not for nothing that Germany, Britain, EU continue to somewhat efficiently subsidize access to energy, because they need to jumpstart the economy. They are looking for $1 trillion economy. That requires
if they promise investment commitment of $14 billion in India is anything to go by, things should be looking up.
Private sector investments.
We understand that. Dr. Sam Amadi, thank you so much for joining us.